Hey everybody, it's Jason with Parallel Reality coming back with you today with an article from The Federalist dated March 27th, and it is entitled Jen Psaki Lies About Lying. And my little brain fart there just a moment ago was because I was going to say that just the other day I did a video about the whole MSNBC debacle with Ronna McDaniel, and this is kind of a continuation of that, about what Jen Psaki had to say. So, one of our chief propagandists here, you know. So let's see what she says. This is pretty funny. So it says, Ronna McDaniel, formerly chair of the Republican National Committee, was recently hired and subsequently fired by NBC News when the talent, in scare quotes, which is perfect, says, unable to countenance even moderate dissent, revolted on air. The entire kerfuffle is unsurprising considering the state of modern media. But one of the funniest moments of the White House blow-up came when host and former White House press secretary Jen Psaki, another political operative hired by NBC, argued that actually the distinction between her and McDaniel was truth versus lies. Yeah, it's funny Jen Psaki saying that, has she ever said anything truthful? I mean, Jesus Christ, you work at MSNBC, or for NBC if you want to say that. Like, you work for like the chief propaganda network out there. And so, of course, this article's next sentence says exactly what probably everybody was thinking, which is, what in the holy hell is she talking about? It says, only last week, Psaki was lying about Donald Trump's bloodbath comment, which every sentient being understands was a metaphor for economic collapse, not, as the MSNBC host explained, an embrace of political violence or dehumanizing language. And let's set aside the election denialism of the 2016 contest, which he claimed was rigged by Russia. Psaki is proficient in lies big and small, whether she's spreading run-of-the-mill lies about how Democrats don't support abortion until birth, and almost all do, or whether she's telling the press that Biden's dog major had not bitten Secret Service officers, and says he's bitten them 24 times at least, or she's spreading hoaxes about Border Patrol agents whipping Haitian migrants. Psaki is a wellspring of misinformation. Yeah, she's up there on the Rachel Maddow scale, like near the top of the list. It says, even considering the normal mendacious parameters of a White House press secretary, she excelled. When Democrats were campaigning to cram through that massive welfare expansion agenda, first named Build Back Better and later Inflation Reduction Act, she told the media that no economist in the country was predicting higher inflation because of massive government spending. Biden, at least, had the decency to contend that a serious economist was warning of disaster. Of course, numerous respected economists, including well-known Democrats, had warned that injecting trillions into a hot economy would exacerbate inflation, as Psaki well knew. She made her claim in November 2021, and a month earlier, inflation had risen at its fastest rate since 1990. And I mean, this is probably just like a tip of the iceberg thing with her. I mean, this is all she does, is lie. This is during the Biden administration's deadly botching of the Afghan withdrawal, which saw 13 American servicemen murdered at the Abbey Gate outside Kabul's Hamid Karzai International Airport. Psaki lied. When the administration, tied it to a political timeline, ignored warnings from intelligence officials that terrorists were taking advantage of unsecured paths, that the U.S. was encouraging civilians to get to the airport, Psaki bragged that all American citizens, Afghan partners, and allies were being rescued. I remember that. She certainly did say that. Because when someone asked her how many Americans had been left behind in the country, she indignantly told them it was irresponsible to say Americans are stranded, which we kind of knew right off the bat. So, again, just flat out lying. And the article goes back to saying, but they were stranded, that is. It says, John Kirby, Pentagon spokesperson, flippantly told the press only days later, we have Americans that get stranded in countries all the time. Everyone knew. I love how that's just like, oh yeah, well, like someone's trying to point out that like you guys effed up, you left people behind, and they're like, people get stranded all the time. Instead of being like, yeah, we're trying to get them all back. Like, that's what you should have said, dumbass. It says later, the Senate Foreign Relations Committee found that as many as 9,000 Americans were left in Afghanistan during the Biden administration's disastrous withdrawal. An NGO report found that the U.S. left behind 78,000 Afghan allies in the chaotic withdrawal. So what's that? 87,000 people were left behind. And she's like, nah, nobody was left behind. Okay. I mean, if it was like even 87, not 87,000, it'd be kind of like, yeah, you could probably still mention them, but this is like a tremendous number, and they're like, oh yeah, no, nobody's left behind. Then again, even before Psaki was a White House press secretary, she had been deputized to enact Iran booster Ben Rose's echo chamber, in which the Obama administration manipulated young, pliable, credulous journalists into spreading misinformation about a nuclear deal to empower the Islamic terror state, one of the administration's highest priorities at the time. And you got to ask yourself, like, why was that? It says, when the State Department deliberately cut embarrassing answers within press briefing videos to avoid scrutiny over their concerted efforts to mislead the media, Psaki lied to the American people about that as well. And there's only a small sample of the former press secretary's prodigious work, and no doubt McDaniel lied for political expediency as well. But let's face it, she is a mere piker next to Psaki. Yeah, and I love how all these people on MSNBC are like, no, we're the truth tellers, like Jen Psaki. And it's like, this is just a small sampling of all the stuff that you've lied about. Like, this is nowhere near, everything. And I'm sure if the author here was to go on and find everything, he'd probably still be writing it. When was this article from? March 27th. Okay, it is a few days later as I record this, and I guarantee you he'd still be writing this article if it was going on. I mean, Peppermint Patty here is one of the absolute worst that there are, and she's too stupid to see it. Simple as that. So let me know what you think about this in the comments below. If there's any additional lies that you think she's done as well that weren't mentioned in this article, please put them in the comments too. But, still like to hear from you anyway. Like, share, subscribe, and I will talk to you soon.